The year is winding down, and I thought it would be a good idea to make a video about what new elements I would like to see in the game. The list consists of a bunch of random ideas that I've talked about with you all throughout the year. The contents of this list range from major game overhaul to small tweaks that can probably be implemented quickly. Here are 9 ideas I would like to see happen to Crusader Kings 3. And we all can agree that Crusades are an absolute shit show. They pretty much suck every time they are called. The AI isn't having fun, the player isn't having fun. Heck, I imagine the dev doesn't have fun with them. Crusades usually go one of 2 ways. They're called, you join, several months go by, and you start making your way to the kingdom being crusaded for, and then your army gets stack wiped because the enemy AI is just waiting for you to land.
You just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Or you do make landfall and start progressing, and then your allied AI abandons you for some reason or another, and then the crusade is done and over with before you really get going. Second way I've seen it but never really experienced is the forever crusade. They usually happen when you're defending against an incoming crusade and you're hoping to not get absolutely obliterated. The first couple of years go okay, but as time goes on, it becomes more and more clear that this will be a stalemate of a war. And because there is no white peace option, it is either surrender or victory. My idea here, instead of doing a traditional combat, you would make it like a tournament where you and your army show up at the crusade by using the travel mechanic. A series of events would help or hinder you on the way to the crusade. Once there, you would then do a series of checks like any other event to decide victory over the course of years, or shorter depending on the options in the settings. This would eliminate the forever war and the tedium of the crusades being solely focused on large armies marching around. Plus, it would add a little bit more of that chaos that really spices up the game. Prefer a tournament style crusade than to what we are currently forced to experience. At this point, I would take a single dice roll to decide a crusade over the current system, which goes to show how poor it is in my mind. Number 2, individual culture tradition images. Like I said, there's going to be some very small quality of life ideas on this list. Please, Paradox, just make this change to all culture traditions having their own individual images. Y'all did this with faith tenets. Why can't we just do the same with culture traditions? Seems like a job that could be done in about a day or 2. Bang out a couple of additional images. So when I'm looking to make the most diabolical evil culture, I'm moving from page to page searching for the culture traditions and seeing 4 of the 5 the same images over and over again. Maybe a stretch goal for this idea would be just adding a search function within the culture tab so that we can see if the tradition can be even established. Because right now, the best way to find out is just going to the wiki and looking at all the traditions to see if you meet the correct requirements to establish this tradition. Just a thought. Number 3, shifting or adding holy sites. Culture changes and so does faith. Why can't we get more holy sites or at least shift to ones that are more important to our specific faith? Let me give you an example. You're playing in India. Well, immediately this isn't a real example because the vast majority of players play in Europe. Okay, here is a better one. You are Buddhist in the British Isles and you form a new Buddhist faith. All the holy sites are halfway across the world. You're telling me that this new faith wouldn't start creating new holy sites to properly represent them? Preposterous. How it would work mechanically would be similar to the Jazur Drift, where it wouldn't happen overnight, but instead take many years. It would depend on fervor to make it appear quicker and could potentially be a new job for your religious court position. Once it was done, you would get an event that said your faith was trying to change holy sites, and you would be able to forget an old one and pick from a list of new ones. This list would put the holy site in a random spot with a random trait, or maybe you could foster what trait it would be with your culture and faith tenets, therefore giving you the feeling that the world is a little bit more lived in and less strict. Like you can customize anything about your faith, but at the end of the day, you're still stuck with the same old places that don't properly represent your people. Number 4, trade system. I feel like this should be a thing already in the game. As someone who's spent some time in Paradox's other grand strategies such as Victoria 3 and Universalis 4, it feels like they could take some of the systems that they already use in those games and then simplify them a little bit for a medieval setting. I'm not a historian, but it feels like trade was very prevalent in this time period. How do you think the plague spread so well? The rats weren't sailing the ships themselves. I know adding another mechanic to this already complex game makes it more daunting for new players, but as it stands right now, the economics in this game need more than you build your building and you get that much gold. The current system doesn't really account for famines or bumper crops outside of the random events that happen very infrequently to your lands. So it would be fun to have a localized trade to make it even more immersive when running your nation. If they're unwilling or not able to add a full trade system, I would settle for a market day activity where your character could possibly offload some of the artifacts that are gathering dust in your storage unit, which we all know you have far too many of these artifacts. Imagine a place where you can flex on your neighboring rulers and vassals. Show off all the cool shit you have that is not even the coolest shit you have, but is still very cool. Like you have so much cool shit that your low tier cool shit is still better than everyone else's shit. The market would allow you to buy and sell artifacts, get up to some business shenanigans, or even buy a county. Or cats and dogs, why not? Feels like how well Tours and Tournament went, they should just rinse and repeat that with most of their new game elements, because I, for one, am down for it, and I think you would all be as well. Number 5, more playable government types. They had them in CK2, why don't we have them in CK3 by now? We're 3 years into the life cycle of this game, and Theocracy and Republics are pretty much unchanged since launched. Do you know when they got playable Republics in CK2? Not even a whole year after launch. Let me be the Doge of Venice already. Simple as that. Well, of course it's not that simple, and this list might sound like I'm griping at Paradox, which I am, but I know that when it comes to creating a game, it takes an incredible amount of time and effort to make things happen, and I do appreciate what they've done so far, and I'm excited for what the new year will bring. That being said, let me be the Doge of Venice already. Number 6, 3D rendered animals. We have cats and dogs and even horse events in the game. You can even get some other wild animals, but why can't we have 3D rendered versions of them? We have horses already rendered, so I know Paradox knows how to make animals. Wouldn't it be fun to have your little pet hang out with you in your throne room, at the council meetings, or even on a hunt? Then when they die, you can have much more than just a pelt, which I know taxidermy wasn't as good as it is now.
They've been taxidermized by Chuck Testa.
But can I get a taxidermy version of my pet rather than just a pelt? But when Bruce dies, he's getting cremated. Or hopefully by then, science has progressed so far that we can just have them live forever. Speaking of immortality, number 7, Immortality. If this is your first time interacting with me, welcome in. My name's Kevin, the cat's name is Bruce, and we do it for him. What you might not know is some of my more popular videos deal with time lapses, which have characters that are immortal that also have 100 stats, which I've been using the same mod over and over again to make that happen. It'd be fun to bring back the CK2 Immortality event chain. I'm going to admit to you all that I never was able to make it happen, so I'm not exactly sure how it would be implemented in this version of the game, but nonetheless, it would add an immense amount of joy to sell my soul to become immortal. It would also put a stop to the dumb meme on the CK subreddit. Number 8, alliances having better rewards. What's the point of an alliance? Some would say an alliance are multifaceted tools that extend beyond a military cooperation. They play a crucial role in diplomacy, economics, and dynastic aspects of rulership, contributing to overall stability and growth of a realm or nation. You know what they're like in Crusader Kings 3? Just a reason to lose prestige. Granted, they can be helpful in the early to mid-game dealing with internal and external threats, but for me personally, every time I get a call from my ally to help them, I would much rather take the prestige and fame penalty and move on. Obviously, if you're role-playing the game, you'll be more likely to accept the call to war, but even then, what do you get out of it? Land? Money? Prestige? No, you get a very small amount of prestige even if you're the one doing the heavy lifting. Most likely, you're more worse off for wear because wars have the potential to put you in a significant amount of debt and cause a loss of troops, which in turn could lead to you having internal conflict too, which your ally will be too busy finishing the war you're helping them with. Why not incentivize fighting for your allies? Allow the player or AI to agree to war with a promise of something such as claims, a share, the war loot, or even a fair amount of renown, to make it so that it isn't a waste of time and effort for little reward overall. Number 9, more start dates. I know we've been using CK2 as kind of a benchmark for a majority of these, but it's hard not to when it is CK3 is the successor to it. They had 5 starting dates in CK2: early Middle Ages, Viking Age, Iron Century, High Middle Ages, and Late Middle Ages. Personally, I don't need all 5, but I would really love to see a 1337 Late Middle Age start. Lots of fun, interesting events popping off around then, and by fun I mean dark and bleak, but would be fun to play through. For example, kings of England and France began a war fought off and on that would last until 1453. The Black Death, one of the largest pandemics in human history, killed as many as 200 million people. Just to name two that would be pretty big additions to the game and add a whole lot of new mechanics and elements that have been sorely missing in the later stages of a campaign. That's my list of 9 things I would like to see come to fruition in the year to come. Which of these 9 things do I feel most likely to happen? Well, depending on your interpretations of the new dev diary, number 141, where they talk about core changes as well as major expansions, they kept it purposely vague, but my gut says they'll be changing the war mechanic. Seems to be the one thing that's on people's minds when it comes to difficulty of the game. Outside of that, I could see them definitely dropping another government type, Imperial, maybe hopefully Republics, but a majority of this list probably won't be implemented this year. There's a wide and thriving modding community that has already or will make some of these ideas come to life in Crusader Kings. Thank you all for listening to me rant for over 10 minutes. Hopefully you found this intriguing. If you did, consider subscribing to the channel. My name is Kevin, this is Do It for Bruce, and as always, have a good rest of your day.